guest today, Miguel, Technical Co-Founder. Tell us a bit about yourself.
So I've been around for a while. My background is technical. I worked a lot with large companies using AI. And then in 2013, I got interested in cryptography.
Just tell us what Nillion really is at the very essence of it.
I think we're all kind of suffering a little bit from survivorship bias in the Web3 space. And so that prevents us from seeing the importance of privacy. So essentially the idea with Nillion is to fix that and to...
How does AI land up being a positive for us as a species? And what does the negative side to it look like?
I do believe that we need a special type of infrastructure to run AI. And I think...
This episode is brought to you by Sonic, the EVM Layer 1 platform that comes with sub-second confirmation times, over 10,000 transactions per second, and an average transaction cost of less than 1 cent. To learn more about the countless apps that are coming to Sonic, or about the 200 million S tokens available to those building and contributing to the Sonic ecosystem, head to soniclabs.com or follow them on X at 0xSonicLabs. Thank you to Sonic Labs for making this episode possible.
Welcome back, everyone, to Founder Series, Blockmates podcast. Guest today, project that's been spoken about quite extensively over the last few months. They hit the ground running. I think this protocol has got so much all wrapped up in one. Nillion, AI, compute, privacy, you name it. It's all in there. And, it basically touches on pretty much all the most important narratives that we've seen in crypto this cycle. Miguel, Technical Co-Founder, the brains, the complexity, but also, we're going to try and unpack, where does the value lie for Nillion, and, why is Nillion important? So, Miguel, welcome. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much, Jerri.
Yeah, we've heard a lot about you guys, and we've been really stoked to see kind of like, all these ideas being brought into one. Yeah, let's kick it off. Tell us a bit about yourself, how your journey started in crypto, and what led you to Nillion and this amazing product that you guys are building.
Yeah, so I've been around for a while. My background is technical, so I have a master's degree in telecom engineering, and then I did a PhD in cryptography or in maths, and then I worked a lot with large companies, even banks, using AI. And then in 2013, I got interested in cryptography, and that's the path that took me to the other crypto, which is the kind of Web3 crypto. And so yeah, I started working with zero knowledge proofs in 2013, but still in kind of Web2 environments. And then in 2017 is when it hit me. Like when I started even trading, I created my own trading bot. And I really started, to focus more on the crypto side of things. I was working back then with Andrew Masanto, co-founder of Hedera and Reserve. We had a project to launch a privacy coin, but there were already like quite a few in the market, and we decided not to do that in the end. Although we had all the kind of maths designed and everything, we kind of postponed that. So I kept on working on other different privacy enhancing technologies like multi-party computation. We can talk about that if you want. And that's when we felt like this is the time now to like privacy enhancing technologies are now mature enough for us to actually launch a Web3 project based on them. And that was 2021, the summer of 2021. And that's when Nillion started.
Okay. And I mean, obviously there's the importance of privacy, and we've spoken a lot about privacy, on Blockmates, on the podcasts. We've written extensively about it, and it almost seems like a lot of people seem to think that it's not important. I don't really want to get into, the importance of privacy, but you guys are almost like putting it in there as kind of like it's not an optionality, it's actually a necessity in the product, so you get it anyways. Just tell us what Nillion really is at the very essence of it, obviously with the privacy, the compute. Yeah, give us a breakdown. What does it mean to you?
Yeah.
And what does it mean as a product?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think we're all kind of suffering a little bit from survivorship bias in the Web3 space, meaning that it all started with kind of everything is public on the ledger, and so the projects that thrived and succeeded, didn't have privacy as a key element. And so now we are kind of following that trend a little bit, and having that kind of cognitive bias, I think, that prevents us from seeing the importance of privacy. So if you think about the origins of the internet, Web 1 was essentially public, but then it became clear that introducing privacy in Web 2 was the thing that actually triggered a tremendous growth. But when we went from Web 2 to Web 3, we took that away. So we went back again public because privacy in Web 2 was broken. So essentially, the idea with Nillion is to fix that and to empower, if you wish, Web 3 now with a new form of privacy. Is different from the one you have in Web 2. Is what we call decentralized privacy. And the difference is that in Web 2 privacy, there's always a company with keys to decrypt your data. Actually, it's a must for them because they need to provide you with a service. They actually need to decrypt the data and then process it. But with this new wave of privacy enhancing technologies, that's no longer the case. So you can now process data without actually decrypting it, and you can do that in a decentralized network. And that is what the essence of Nillion is. So it's a new form of Web3 infrastructure that is compatible with existing ones. So actually can connect to existing blockchain technology, but it's not a blockchain. What it provides is this ability to now store and compute on decentralized data without actually revealing it even to ourselves.
Okay, so we've got essentially AI and data and privacy. So explain to us how that all comes together in order to obviously present itself as the product.
Yeah. So in principle, though, I mean, what we provide with Nillion is what we call the Nillion Blind Compute. This is the name of this infrastructure, and it's a general purpose one. So you can do any type of compute. You can, for example, think about DeFi applications where you want to, I don't know, like use personal information or sensitive information in some way or form. Also, deepin. It really is vertical agnostic. But it is true that AI is not just another tech. It is, I think, meant to change the whole, our whole society. And in doing so, I think it's also going to demand from us what we call a level 3 type of data, which is like a different type of data, much more sensitive, much more personal than what we are used to sharing with Web 2 companies. So it is because of that we're actually focusing a lot of our efforts in AI, just as one of the verticals, like that you can build on top of Nillion, but it's so important, I think, and we are such at an inflection point, I believe, in our society with AI, that that's became like a central piece of what Nillion is, and that's why you hear us talk so much about AI, and the kind of the connection of AI, decentralized AI in particular, with privacy. And as you said before, we believe that privacy, at least in this context, is not just a feature, but it's actually it's a must-have. It is a necessary ingredient for decentralized AI.
Yeah, I mean, you speak about level 3 data. Just give us a breakdown. I really enjoyed that video that you guys did, that you actually described it as being a documentary, and in many ways it isn't a documentary, but it was also kind of like the stark reality of different levels of data that you guys identified. So anyone who's listening or watching the pod, go to the Nillion YouTube channel and just check out, I think it's the feature video that's there around how Nillion is actually approaching the idea of creating a social clone from an AI perspective, and what the social clone would essentially need from a data perspective in order to essentially service everything that you would need to navigate this world. And you guys describe different levels of data that AI would need. So you got level 1, level 2, level 3. Just give us a breakdown of that and what they involve.
So level 1 is everything that is public about you. So is, for example, this podcast, the things you tweet, the videos you upload, everything that is in essence a journalist, like if you were famous, writing an article about you would have access to. If Level 2 is what we're used to sharing with Web 2 companies. Different Web 2 companies, like for example, browsing, preferences, your browser fingerprint, your cookies, browsing history, but also the kind of service specific data that you share with, service provider ABC, whatever. People are fine with sharing those two things. I think if anything we've learned from Web 2 is that that's the case, right? People kind of see it worth receiving a free service in exchange for level 2 data. That's fine. Level 2 is obviously not a problem, but AI is going to be different. It's already like a little bit like Web 1. So the first version of Web was public. The first version of AI has been public, has been trained mostly on public data, but it ran out of it essentially. So now it's going for the high value data, which is all those things that are contextual to you. Like it is everything that makes you you. So we're talking about the things that you would only share with your therapist, or all the voice conversations you've had, because there will be devices listening to you, access to your emails, access to your medical history, all your records, your financial records. We're talking about the things that you really think about, like your boss, or your I don't know, your mother-in-law. We're talking about the lies you've told, your also your cognitive biases, so the things that make you imperfect, and also like the difference between how smart you are and how smart you think you are. All of those things are like on the level 3 category. It is a different separate category. There's no prior like example of this happening in history. Like at no time has ever a company had so much power, so much access to such sensitive information as they will in short. So this has the power to destroy you essentially. And it's not just the risk of them sharing that information behind your back, which is what you were used to being exposed to in Web 2. It's mostly about these companies having actually the power to manipulate you in ways that maybe are not even visible to you, because they tap on your cognitive biases and blind spots. So it is an unprecedented amount of power that I think companies are going to have, because that's where they're going after, because that's what it will enable them to create this notion of personalized AI. That is like your digital clone knows everything that you know. It's going to be super useful, but it has this tremendous risk attached to it if it's run by a centralized company. So I think this is a very clear case for decentralization, and a form of decentralization where it is not just about ensuring that the integrity of the service is maintained, but also about and foremost about ensuring that the privacy of the data is preserved.
Wow. Okay. So there's obviously there's a lot going on at the moment from an AI perspective, and I want to just kind of zoom out and kind of like look at the paradigm, the narrative, the essentially this brave new world that is AI, and how it's going to potentially mold and almost create the route with which we as a civilization, as a species, go, because that's what it sounds like, right? It's like
Yes.
we
Yeah.
almost we almost don't have a choice. We're kind of like a victim of our own ingenuity in this regard. It's kind of like, well,
Yes.
AI solves a lot of problems, but then obviously it creates a whole lot of problems as well. Just obviously, just stepping away from Nillion itself, even though I know that it will land up being intricate to your answer, is that how does AI land up being a positive for us, as a species? And then the second part of the question is, what does the negative side to it look like?
Yeah. I think I'm trying. I'm going to try to extract that from Nillion, but in my answer, you will see kind of the signature of it,
Yes.
because I do believe that we need a special type of infrastructure to run AI. It's going to run such sensitive processes, not just for us, the personalized AI that I was mentioning, but it's also going to automate things like that haven't been automated before. We believe that everything it is automated in our world, but that's not the case. It is run, decisions are made by humans mostly, and the structures are centralized. So you have in the end like a few humans making important decisions. I think that AI is gonna change that, and we are indeed transitioning from the era of globalization to the era of automation, driven by AI. And this demands for a new type of infrastructure. We cannot run it on the usual Web2 infrastructure that has been proven to be insecure and subject to manipulation and to the accumulation of power by a few. We need a decentralized infrastructure. I think I'm convinced about this. That provides us with mathematical guarantees of fairness and security. And one of those elements pertaining the security of this infrastructure, a key one, as I said before, is privacy. And so those are the things that I think that have to be there. If they're not there, then and then on top of that, we also need controls to make sure that the AI does essentially what it says on the tin. And of course, it's a difficult problem because it's a black box. Explainability is very hard for AI. So we'll have to develop a lot of understanding around how AI models work and how to make sure that we can enforce certain rules, certain like restrictions, so that AI doesn't go wild. That would be like one of the main risks. I think it's going to happen in a transition in our relationship model with AI, that you can base it on the way you transition a relationship with a new employee. So this comes from management theory. You start with supervision. That's how we are now. Like you look, you're like you got a new pair of hands, but you still have the brain. You still break down the problems in pieces. You still double check the responses. That's where we are currently with AI. With agents, I think things are moving towards a coaching model of interaction, where now the AI has a little bit more freedom to think, and it's able to do so, and it's able to go in, to the internet and research. So you have different agentic design patterns, like reflection, planning, and tool use, which give more freedom to AI to actually start thinking. Like, of course, this is just a metaphor. Start thinking on itself. And I don't think it's going to stop there. I think it's going to continue to mentoring, where now you don't work. You still think, you still provide guidance to the AI, but you're no longer kind of, in the trenches working with it. And then ultimately, it will go to delegation. And that's where that was what I was talking about the borders. So you give the AI a playground, you define the limits of what it can do and it cannot do, and within the playground, you give it full freedom. So for a personal, for a person, it may mean that, okay, this is my budget. These are, my preferences. Please surprise me with a trip to a random place that I don't know of, and or this is like my medical history. Please assist me in keeping me healthy, things like that. Or this is my financial records and all my accounts. Please help me make sound investment decisions. So that's from the personal standpoint, but you can extrapolate that also to other places in society, much more critical to the to the whole society as a thing, like, for example, the way governments operate or the way companies operate. So they will also presumably transition to that delegation stage, where you actually kind of hand over to the AI a lot of responsibility in decision making. And that's when things become tricky, because that's when the AI has the power also to make a lot of harm. So I think that transition from the model of interaction has to be done, not only driven by what the tech can do in terms of features, but also by whatever limitations or controls we can put in place to make sure that the tech doesn't like go berserk or kind of go wild, beyond our expectations. I think it's really important. We've never faced another technology like this one. Some people even think of it in terms of an alien intelligence, in the sense that it doesn't think exactly like we do.
Yeah.
So it really deserves a lot of care and protection on our side. We really need to be ready for this transition of interaction.
Great answer. I think like the thing that really kind of struck me is that you said that you essentially need an environment in order for AI to function accordingly with those checks and balances in place. How does a decentralized environment allow for that to happen? I almost get the feeling that it's like it gives the AI more opportunity to run free.
Yeah.
Why am I thinking? Yeah, what is your take on that from a decentralized perspective? What are the benefits?
Great question. In principle, you're right. So one of the things that people are concerned about, the more hardcore kind of ethical thinkers in AI, is the kill switch problem, which
Yes.
is if the AI goes wild, can you turn it off? And the problem is, it may sound like an exaggeration, because it kind of sounds like science fiction. But think about for a second, if it does happen, the AI will have the power to replicate itself across multiple databases, and it will be virtually impossible to turn it off. This is not what happens with humans. We are attached to our physical infrastructure, which is our brain. There's no porting of our software, like our mind, outside of our brain. But this is something that AI can do. So it can just go from one hardware to another hardware and function the same way. Um, and this, like, it has historical reasons. It came because of the separation between software and hardware, which was a very good decision made in the 60s. But now the consequences are these, that the AI has the potential to switch. And it's true that a decentralized network, having the feature of censorship resistance, in principle, has this ability. I mean, make things even worse, because in principle, is built to resist all forms of all attempts to turn it off. That's why I think we need a different type of decentralized infrastructure, a little bit more like what Nillion is building. It is not like a massive network of 1,000 nodes with a Byzantine fault tolerance. It's more like a smaller cluster running the network in such a way that if one of the nodes fails or is turned off, the actual thing is turned off, because the information, the weights of the AI are distributed across those nodes, and then you can define like a threshold between the amount of fault tolerance that you want and the amount of security, or the amount of power you want to have in your hand to turn it off. For example, on the extreme is what I just said, that if you turn one node off, the whole thing goes off, because without the shares from the weights that node has, the AI cannot function, cannot run inference, and that information is critical. So if all the other nodes are bad actors and they replicate themselves somehow, without the information from this single node that is a good actor, the thing that cannot work. And then opposed to that is the other concern, which is, but if one node fails, the whole thing fails. Well, you have a slider where you can decide how much fault tolerance you want to bring in, but that's kind of in opposition with this concern that we were discussing. So I think it's both. Decentralized networks, they have to be carefully designed around this problem, because otherwise they can if you apply them directly, they will make it worse.
Am I understanding you correctly that if you have one node that is essentially turned off, the whole network is essentially rendered incapable of allowing the AI to function? Is that correct?
Yes.
But
So
that,
you can think of this as a slider. In one stream of the slider, you have this behavior that you just
but
mentioned.
isn't that the same as a centralized service? If the server goes down, you essentially lose service across the board.
Yes, but the thing is that a server is controlled by one entity, whereas the nodes are controlled by many entities.
Okay.
So if the AI wants to replicate itself in a centralized environment, it will only have to corrupt one node, the central server, even if it's kind of decentralized, not decentralized, but distributed, like it is across several, cloud environments and so on. It's kind of run by the same entity. Whereas here, it will have to corrupt different entities, which makes it
Yeah.
more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting, obviously a really interesting topic, and from a moral, ethical perspective, we could probably do like two or three podcasts around this. So
Yeah.
I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to stop right there with that, even though I'd love to, dive deeper into it. And I want to just move into, the network itself, and what essentially the service is that you guys are offering at the most fundamental level. Because you when we started our conversation, you spoke about Nillion not really being a blockchain. So what exactly is it? Is it kind of like a bolt-on service for all EVM or Solana? I mean, how does it really fit into the greater scheme of things as a product
Yeah.
right now?
That's a very good question. So Nillion has a blockchain. It's not a blockchain, but it uses a blockchain, Cosmos One, to kind of run the coordination of the blind computer. The blind computer is a separate infrastructure made out of different nodes arranged in clusters. So you can think of it as different clusters, each one with different configurations. So some of them will have just a few nodes, others will have more. The hardware requirements are also different. Why? Because the different clusters will be running different privacy enhancing technologies, essentially, depending on the use case and application. And so it is the blockchain is just used for coordination of that, and of course for running the token. And then those clusters are interconnected with or can be connected to blockchain environments, to Solana, EVMs and stuff like that. They have both the ability to listen to events in those chains, as well as to write back to smart contracts on those chains through threshold signatures. So essentially, you have now like a separate compute facility that enables you to both store private data in a decentralized way on those clusters. So we have what we call NILDB, which is like a decentralized database for secure storage. And then you can compute on that private information without actually decrypting it, so that the nodes don't know what they're doing. That's what it's called blind computation, because they don't see anything from the data. And yeah, that's kind of the idea.
Okay, great. So in terms of the journey that you guys are on right now, so at what point are you in the build? And I mean, I've got to ask this: when token? Let's get into that first. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the journey started like 3 years ago, almost,
Yes.
2021. And initially because this is a new type of infrastructure, we had to kind of reinvent everything from scratch. Where there's almost no reuse of existing blockchain stack and technology. So this is a new thing, a new beast. So we had to kind of develop it from scratch. That's why initially we took like 1 or 2 years heads down building this thing, and now recently we came out of the cave and started engaging with a larger community. And so we are at a point where we're starting to see a lot of traction coming from community. So we're starting to see people participate in the network in different ways or forms. For example, you have almost, like last time I checked, almost 400,000 verifiers. Their role is to make sure that the integrity of the data in our database is maintained. You have also node operators, both for the blockchain, for the Cosmos blockchain, as well as for the NBC, for the Nillion blind computer. You have founding entrepreneurs building on top of us. Some of them are coming from Web3, so they have like existing projects on Web3, on the Web3 domain, and they want to use our infrastructure for secure storage and compute of private data. But some others, I think it's interesting that some others are coming actually from Web2, because now suddenly they see that the ideas that they have from Web2 are feasible on a Web3 infrastructure, because those ideas will typically involve the manipulation of personal information. So we see that other type of community as well. Then we have L1 and L2 partners like Near, Arbitrum, Aptos, IONET, Ritual, and others. And then we have like the wider community, Discord, hackathons, and so on. And also, we're working very closely with cryptographers. So we have collaborated with Meta recently in publishing a paper about accelerating AI under privacy-enhancing technologies. Also with universities like Royal Holloway in London, University of Delaware, University of California, Irvine, University of Calgary, Berkeley, and others. So it's like this thing is now no longer a project from a bunch of lunatics, which is what we were like back a few years ago. It's taking shape, and we found we're very lucky to have found equally minded people with the same concerns as we have, that are collaborating with us and working with us. So I think that's the stage where we are as a company.
Amazing answer, because one of the questions that I had written down was, obviously there needs to be a huge collaboration in order for this thing to work, and one of those things, or part of my question was like, how does ChatGPT fit into this? How does Perplexity and all these kind of like different AIs, do they have a place from a collaborative perspective to come in and use your infrastructure and your network to obviously distribute? Well, it's not a case of are they recommended to use the network? I mean, how does that collaboration actually look like for you guys?
Yeah. So what we're seeing is people building like marketplaces for AI agents, for example,
Yes.
on our infrastructure, so that they're
Okay.
bringing in maybe not like GPT-4 models because they're really large, but smaller agentic models like something like Llama 7B, 70B, things like that, and actually running those, or kind of planning on running those in our infrastructure, which will be done, by the way, on a technical level through a combination of different privacy enhancing technologies. Sometimes it will be a little bit of trusted execution environments. Sometimes it will be a little bit of MPC. Sometimes combinations of the two. But yeah, like we're seeing, unfortunately, I think that the two communities right now are quite split. Like you have the Web3 AI people building these sort of things, and then you have the traditional Web2 people who are not that concerned, um, unfortunately, I think, about privacy, or they claim that they have solved it by just adding, some terms and conditions, and by encrypting data at rest. But again, they have the key to decrypt it, and they think that that's addressed by just doing that, and they are not interested in decentralizing the infrastructure at all. So I think like we have these two worlds, and I do hope that that's for a reason, by the way, because of course those companies have the power, they have the control of the whole value chain, right? They control data collection, they control training, they control inference. It is a very unhealthy environment in that sense, which tends to monopoly. It's an oligopoly right now. And why would they give up that, right? Why would they do that? And why would they welcome privacy when privacy is the key element, I think, that will actually unlock that system, which is now like a black box. And by protecting weights and training data sets and user prompts, it will enable the creation of marketplaces of companies operating in the training side, operating in the data collection side, and operating in the infra side. So I think privacy is actually the key element that unlocks that whole ecosystem and enables new incumbents to come in and compete against those companies specializing and bringing in innovation, because it's going to be like a richer ecosystem. So why would those companies be happy with that? There's a reason, right? And so we're seeing the new people, like the decentralized kind of projects that are aligned with what I just said, and the kind of current Web2 companies, which are happy with their kingdoms and they want to grow them bigger. And there's like this this almost we were talking about blind warriors and blind wars. This is one of them, I think, a big one taking place right now.
So I think quite an important question for me is how do you guys go about on a technical level to ensure the privacy? Is it like ZK Sync? I mean, what is it? Your own tech? Just give us a glimpse or even a deep dive into that if you'd like.
Okay, so sometimes I speak with people, and some people think that cryptography is zero knowledge proof. There are more flavors, there are more types and forms of cryptography that more or less began like in the 80s, almost 40 years ago. And ZKP enables you to prove stuff, but the prover has to have access to that information in the plain text. So it has some advantages, but it also has limitations. Other forms of privacy enhancing technologies like FHE, fully homomorphic encryption, or multi-party computation, MPC, they enable you to actually compute on the data without revealing it, so that you can mix data from different users, for example, in a computation, and there's no role of, like similar to the prover that has to see all that data in plain text. The computation actually takes place in encrypted form. So it opens up, like, it is the key component that enables you to design a decentralized network like the Nillion blind computer. And then you have, of course, hardware-based solutions like trusted execution environments. So this all begs the question, like, what is the best one? What is the best privacy enhancing technology? And our answer to that question is that none of them and all of them at the same time. We think that they are different tools that are useful for different tasks and purposes, but there's no silver bullet. There's not a single one that is going to take over the market of PETs. And so we design our system, our blind computer, with that in mind. And so we enabled for the creation of these different clusters with different configurations. So, for example, if you want to run FHE, you will want to run it on like GPU hardware, but maybe you want to have another cluster that runs TEs. Maybe you want to have another cluster that runs MPC with CPUs. So the whole architecture is designed to be able to interconnect those different privacy enhancing technologies to provide developers with a wider design space so that they can choose depending on their use case and needs between the different ones. And I would say that the key value proposition from a technical perspective from Nillion is that ability to combine those PETs. But not only that, because that only takes you, to this far, which is like it provides you with a very low level programming language. You can think of it in terms of machine learning. So yes, with these PETs combined together, you are able to do things like additions and multiplications or run some Boolean circuits. But that's very far away from what developers really need. Like when I'm developing an AI, like I don't want to hear about circuits, and things like that. So there's a huge gap between what these PETs provide and what developers really need. And that gap needs to be filled in with libraries, with additional components that bridge, this division. And we are also doing that. We have identified that as another major problem of existing PETs. And to give you just an example, we created, as again in collaboration with Meta, a library that enables you to work with PyTorch, just like standard PyTorch, but under the hood, you're actually working with privacy enhancing technologies without even knowing it. So you don't have to be a cryptographer to actually use cryptography. That's kind of the bottom line here. And you're used to working with PyTorch. Well, you're lucky because you can still work with that, and we'll take care of the rest. And we will accelerate, and we are innovating all the time on those intermediary layers so that we can provide you with faster primitives, but you don't see them. You just see the results. So I think those two elements, the ability to combine PETs and also the ability to bridge the gap between PETs and what developers really need, are key components of our value proposition from a technical perspective.
Opportunity for you to share with us your vision around what Nillion looks like. Kind of like, what is the perfect Nillion for you right now, looking into the future? If you sit back and say, okay, well, a job well done would be Nillion doing the following. Give us a glimpse into what the dream looks like for you.
I think a job well done is essentially for Nillion to become invisible, so that you are developing Web3 applications, you are using libraries from us, but your users don't know that. So that everything is built on top of this blind computer infrastructure, but your end users don't realize that, because there is almost no performance penalty, and there is nothing that alerts them, oh, this is a different type of application, I need to learn new things, the usability has changed. So nothing of that will be impacted or altered. And for the developer, I think what it will, what the definition of success will look like is when we're able to integrate, again, everything, all this machinery, all these cryptographic protocols under the hood of something that you're familiar with. So that's what we're talking about before, about PyTorch, but call it PyTorch, call it Python, it doesn't matter. The idea is that we don't require developers to learn new ways of doing things. We facilitate also the deployment of the programs on our decentralized infrastructure, so that it's not just code that they're doing, but actually they're building products, because that code will run on actual nodes in our infrastructure. And also we facilitate the monetization of that code, so that you don't need to think about payments and stuff like that, because there's easy integrations with our payment methods. And also we help you with marketing. So ideally, for developers, this will become like a marketplace, where different cryptographers, they create like protocols that are then integrated in libraries. Those are used by developers, they rate them, and everything becomes like a very dynamic marketplace, where everyone is essentially rewarded for their work, both cryptographers, as well as developers, as well as even end users, because everything is Web3 and is run by a token.
So, you speaking predominantly from a scenario where developers are given the opportunity to come and build on Nillion. What role do everyday users like myself have, obviously beyond just going and using those protocols? How does a community see value in the product that you guys are creating? I mean, primarily from a token, because I mean we've had this discussion on numerous occasions. In fact, way too many times, where we turn around and we say, does a protocol or an ecosystem require a token? And a lot of the time the answer is, well, no, they don't. Unless, of course, the token actually has intrinsic value that then is either transferred back into the network, which then gets transferred to the user, to the community, or even to a protocol/developer. What does that dynamic look like for Nillion? Is there a necessity for a token? And if there is, where does the value reside within the construct of the token itself?
Yeah, I cannot imagine a project of this size being built without a token, because it is like the fabric that makes all of these pieces align. Like it gets them aligned. All these players that we were talking about, like verifiers,
Yeah.
node operators, even founding entrepreneurs, partners, and even end users.
Yeah.
It kind of creates incentives for each one of these individuals and actors in the ecosystem. Without that, I honestly don't see how this would be possible, unless you were willing to spend like hundreds of or even billions of dollars on this. So it has to be a project that gives back to the community, to the users, that creates the utility, the value in using it for each one of these actors. Otherwise, it will never get built. And I think that can only happen in Web3. It's one of the reasons why we started this project in Web3.
So, I mean, it essentially is a way to raise funds, but then once that happens, you almost have a circular economy where that value is passed on to developers, to protocols, to users. So does it fulfill the function of governance, or is it more around the idea of real yield, or is it a combination of the two?
That as well, governance as well is a key ingredient. So we are in the path towards decentralization. So we've created the association or kind of / foundation with the idea that it will essentially be the one that controls governance of the whole network, and we'll step back as a devco, as a company developing the infrastructure, and just give away control of the whole thing. It's already started.
Yes.
And I think it has to be, again, like that. And I think it with AI is also very important, because if you don't do that, then the private interests from companies get in the way of safety, which is what we're seeing with Web2 AI companies. I think it has to be decisions made by the larger community, rather than by a board of directors just thinking about profit and revenue, because otherwise you kind of don't see you don't see it coming. You don't see the larger picture. You just optimize for one metric, which is money, and you forget about the rest, which is what about the safety, what about the value back to society. All those different concerns only start playing a role whenever you give away control and you incorporate the larger community.
So in terms of builders that are currently on the network itself, I mean, do you have quite a large number of builders and developers that are participating in building and obviously determining what this product market fit looks like? Just talk us a little bit through that and give us a little bit of an insight in kind of like the day to day of what's happening, kind of like in your office.
Yeah. So we are going, we're going through the process of turning ourselves from a consulting company into an infrastructure company, essentially. At the beginning, it wasn't possible to be just an infrastructure company offering like a number of SDKs or APIs and just leave people built on top of us, because we were not mature enough. So initially, our model of interaction with developers is what we call the FE program, which stands for founding entrepreneurs, which were people really, really close to us, building with us. And this serves in a bidirectional way, right? So we are providing them with this consulting service, but we're also learning from the market and from their needs. So we're tailoring the platform according to, in a data-driven way, according to actual needs from the market. I think we're transitioning already from there, because we have created like a number of sort of primitives that enable now people coming from a different from a specific type of project and kind of almost self-serving themselves and developing on top of that. So one of those patterns, one of those archetypes is what we call data blocks, which is everything around the storage of data, and then further computation on that data. So essentially, is people, for example, who want to build a marketplace between suppliers, which are the users who store their data in a centralized way, in a privacy preserving way, versus then the demand side, which is companies which either pay them or offer them access to their services or some perks to actually be able to run some computations and get some insights from their data. All of this, of course, in a consent-driven way from the user. So that's one pattern. Another pattern is the AI pattern that we were talking about before. So we see that people are building again, like these marketplaces for agents, or they want to run inference of certain AI models. Another pattern is games. So we're seeing that people want to keep the state of the game private, so that they can guarantee to their users that the game is not rigged, that they don't have, they're not tampering with the random generation aspect of it. And also, there's another kind of category, which is the private decentralized exchanges, building kind of DeFi type of solutions. And I think it will continue like that. So we will incorporate more archetypes of products, more kind of patterns. And every time we do that, we will automate or start automating part of the interaction with a whole sector or subsector of developers. It's the only way I think that can be done, because if you just give something to them, it won't be helpful. And if you keep on doing consulting the whole time, it just won't be scalable. So there has to be a path from the latter to the former.
Yeah, I mean, that obviously fits in with kind of like what your roadmap looks like. It's like you've planned this, you've thought about it, you've obviously thought about it really carefully, and there's obviously different stages to this whole process. But before I get onto the roadmap and to essentially conclude our discussion, I wanted to just check in on the compute side of things. Is this kind of like a traditional, like getting people to contribute their graphics processing power? I mean, what does that look like, on a practical level?
Yeah. So for node operators on the Nillion blind computer, it really depends on the cluster. So there will be different clusters. Of course, we're getting started now, so there will be different clusters, and they will have different hardware configurations. So some of them will be intensive on hardware resources, like in the need of GPUs, sometimes TEs, but some others will be more traditional, like, okay, a CPU is enough. And some others will be storage intensive, because there will be the nodes running the database, the decentralized database. So it almost feels like, whatever hardware configuration you have, if you're a node operator, you will end up finding the right cluster for you to be in Nillion.
Okay, great. Roadmap. Tell us about, you've told us how this journey started and where you guys are at. What does the future look like? I mean, I know that there's a lot of people, especially on the retail level. I mean, I can't speak on behalf of devs, because we don't often interact with them. Our community is obviously super excited about what you guys are doing, and obviously from the speculative side of things. But this is obviously a lot bigger than that, and a lot more robust, and more so practical. I mean, there's a practical application here. What does the roadmap look like? Obviously we coming into December. Yeah, tell us about, like, what are the major milestones that we can look forward to?
Yeah. So in the short term, the major milestone, I think, is the release of the first, or the first batch of founding entrepreneurs is going live, essentially, with their different products. Essentially, most of them are going to be in the data blocks / AI category. And so we'll start seeing people launch actual applications on Nillion, and that's really exciting for us. And of course, there's other batches coming after that, but I think this is a major milestone for us. Until now, we've had, of course, people building like demos and stuff like that. For example, you can go to masquerade.nillion.com, and you will see there. You will get a sense of the things that you can build with us. You will see different demos and so on. But this will mark a major milestone in Nillion's history, because it will be actual FEs going live with their products. And following that, sometime, I'm not able to tell you the exact date, but sometime next year, the idea is to go and launch a token.
Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Can you give us a
hard for me to tell.
Okay.
I'm not allowed to, actually.
That's fine. I'm not gonna press it. Yeah, I think obviously a lot of people are looking forward to that. From my side of things, like, just obviously having engaged with you today, I really like the fact that you guys have thought about this clearly, have thought about it long and hard. There's a very clear plan. And it's great to hear that, we are seeing this kind of thing, especially privacy with AI and obviously protecting the integrity of that data. So yeah, it's been really cool to sit down and just, truly understand what it is that you guys are doing. I feel very privileged to have spoken to you, Miguel. So yeah, thank you very much for that. And I think you guys are going to absolutely smash it. I think it's a product
Thank you,
that's very
Jerri.
needed. Yeah,
Thank you for having me here today. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, that's been great to chat to you, and yeah, we look forward to continuing to cover what you guys are doing. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people talk about there's no innovation in Web3, and it's so untrue. I think people are just too focused on playing games and gambling as opposed to looking at what really is like beneficial and truly like relevant in the space. And I think you guys tick that box. So yeah, I look forward to seeing your journey unfold. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jerri.
Pleasure. Thanks everyone. Please like and subscribe. We obviously appreciate it. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Take it easy. Cheers.
Quick one, nothing here is financial advice. It's for entertainment and educational purposes only. Always do your own research or speak to a financial advisor before making any investment decisions.